The interpretation of narratives is to some extent subjective because everyone can experience art differently. At the same time, using literary analysis, we can still explain the most reasonable meanings that the artist meant to convey or that the audience is likely to understand. To understand themes of any work of art, however, spoilers are involved. Heavy spoilers. So consider this your spoiler warning. 1000 Times Resist, the narrative adventure game by new developer Sunset Visitor, is a video game with an intriguing story, a work of art that seems intent on expressing certain meanings to its audience, especially through multiple generations of characters in its story. In our first video, part 1, we discussed themes related to rebellion, resistance, and revolution. In this video, part 2, we are going to interpret themes related to being in exile and answer the question, how do Iris and her clones demonstrate themes of migration in Resisting 1000 Times? Our first theme for today's video on migration is that of the morality of choosing to leave in times of occupation and rebellion. This idea is especially developed through a phrase that is introduced in an early part of the game. At the school, Watcher encounters a student who is in detention, a very clever metaphor for this idea of staying versus leaving.
People learn different. Who am I to say no? Bad kids stay, the good kids go.
This quotation has two meanings. The first of which is like the detention itself, that in some cases only the morally good ones are allowed to go, whereas the bad ones must stay. We see an example of this in the special friendship between Watcher and Fixer. Because Fixer has been selected as worthy of joining All-Mother on the other side, she is one of the good ones, whereas the other sisters must remain in the orchard and wait their turns. Later, during the reign of the provisional government, the good sisters, meaning Fixer, Helier, BBF, and Watcher, they flee and live in exile on the train, whereas the bad ones, Principal and possibly Knower, stay and run the provisional government. There's also a second meaning, that bad can refer to weak and good refer to strong. Fixer chooses to leave despite the fact that she knows Watcher will have trouble saying goodbye. This requires strength on her part. In a later example, Iris's own parents fled the 2019-2020 Hong Kong protests during the mass exodus to live in Canada. Iris's grandmother questions this and chooses to stay, implying cooperation with an authoritarian government, whereas Iris's mother chooses to leave, implying choosing a moral good and having the strength to say goodbye to her parents. In a conversation with Zhao, Iris claims that fleeing from Hong Kong is weak and that her mother is the weakest person she knows, something that is later proven wrong due to Iris's mother being one of the last survivors on the planet. In contrast, Zhao suggests that fleeing was good because at least Iris's parents are alive, whereas Zhao did not move to Canada until after her own father died in rebellion. Despite judging her mother for immigrating, Iris herself chooses to flee with the 50 and to live on the generation ships when the occupants destroy the world. A moral good to carry on life in the world when staying would have doomed the world without Iris's immunity. Iris also needs strength to say goodbye, knowing that it would hurt her mother and her father.
Don't leave us like this. Please, I won't make it without you.
In the Bible, this idea of fleeing and being in exile in Babylon is actually described as a good one, and staying in oppression as a bad one. After Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had taken into exile from Jerusalem Jeconiah the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, together with the officials of Judah, the craftsmen, and the metalworkers, and had brought them to Babylon, the Lord showed me this vision. Behold, 2 baskets of figs placed before the temple of the Lord. One basket had very good figs, like first ripe figs, but the other basket had very bad figs, so bad they could not be eaten. And the Lord said to me, What do you see, Jeremiah? I said, Figs, the good figs very good, and the bad figs very bad, so bad that they could not be eaten. Then the word of the Lord came to me. Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, like these good figs, so I will regard as good the exiles from Judah, whom I have sent away from this place to the land of the Chaldeans. I will set my eyes on them for good, and I will bring them back to this land. I will build them up and not tear them down. I will plant them and not pluck them up. I will give them a heart to know that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God, for they shall return to me with their whole heart. But thus says the Lord, like the bad figs that are so bad they cannot be eaten, so will I treat Zedekiah the king of Judah, his officials, the remnant of Jerusalem who remain in this land, and those who dwell in the land of Egypt. I will make them a horror to all the kingdoms of the earth, to be a reproach, a byword, a taunt, and a curse in all the places where I shall drive them. And I will send sword, famine, and pestilence upon them, until they shall be utterly destroyed from the land that I gave to them and their fathers. Jeremiah chapter 24, verses 1 to 10. Just like God commands the Jews not to fight Babylon, but to accept living in exile, in 1,000 times resist, emigration seems to be the only good option, as compared with both reckless rebellion or supporting an unjust regime.
The bad kids stay, the good kids go.
However, like most who live in a foreign land, the characters in 1,000 times resist face significant challenges in their host country, leading us to our second theme. Our second point for today's video on themes of migration in 1,000 times resist is that of having difficulties in a foreign land. After immigrating, many immigrants have difficulties with finances, language, friction with locals, and loneliness. Iris's friend Zhao struggles from being labeled a fob fresh off the boat, facing racism from classmates, and shame and embarrassment from Iris. When Iris flees Canada on the Generation ship with the 50, Iris has significant difficulties with the 50 themselves, being used for all sorts of inhumane cloning experiments. The members of the 50 also struggle with life on their Generation ship, leading to depression, conflict, and even suicide. When the Sisters of Watcher's Time are forced to flee Principal, they can never get used to living on the train. This seems to result in a lot of mental health issues for them. This theme of having difficulties in a foreign land is also highlighted by a motif, sleepwalking, which Iris's mother does.
She's sleepwalking again.
Well, it's that time of year.
Later, as the conflicts among the sister and her interactions with the occupants slowly wear her down, Iris herself sleepwalks and has trouble staying lucid.
She's been sleepwalking at night, talking to herself.
The motif of sleepwalking is also repeated in Principal.
I remember waking up somewhere else. I've been walking in my sleep again.
In the Bible, the greatest example of struggling in a foreign land is probably that of the Israelites in Egypt.
From people like us.
Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now, behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children out of Egypt? He said, But I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Exodus chapter 3, verses 7 to 12. Just like how the Israelites struggle with slavery implemented by the Egyptians, many characters in the game face a variety of difficulties when living in a foreign land.
You've been sleepwalking.
These difficulties will naturally lead one to feel homesick, even if the home that one is nostalgic for is only a memory, which leads us to our third theme.
Dream every night of going back home, haunted by a place that doesn't exist.
Our third theme for today's video related to migration in 1,000 times resist is that of a longing and a remembrance for a lost home.
I dream every night of going back home, haunted by a place that doesn't exist.
In Iris's childhood, it is clear that her parents and Zhao herself miss Hong Kong, even though the Hong Kong that they know no longer really exists under its government. Both her mother and her father, at different times, express their homesickness. Her mother through bonding with Zhao, and her father when he eventually commits suicide.
Okay. It was songs that got us through.
They also express the importance of remembering the home they lost. That resisting oppression is not about winning, but about remembering what was lost.
Some things are important to remember.
When Iris herself is on the Generation ships, she longs for and remembers her school life and Zhao, with the reminiscing especially developed through the symbols of Zhao's diary and picture.
The most important thing, whether they like it or not, is to remember.
Likewise, when the organization, the 50, are on the Generation ships, they long for open skies, freedom, and a world without disease, none of which exists due to the occupants and the occupants' epidemic. As all mother, Iris misses her home and longs for advice from her mother, even though her home is not what it was, with the end of civilization and the death of her father.
What I want to give for a bowl of noodle.
All those logs of ancient human customs and studies, what use is such nostalgia?
In contrast, during the provisional government, they choose not to remember the past because nowhere destroys the library and forgets. In the Bible, when the Jews are taken captive to Babylon, they also express similar sentiments of homesickness and remembering. By the waters of Babylon, there we sat down and wept. when we remembered Zion. On the willows there we hung up our lyres, for there our captors required of us songs, and our tormentors mirth, saying, Sing us one of the songs of Zion. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. Psalm 137 verses 1 to 5. Just like how the Jews feel a homesickness for destroyed Jerusalem, Iris's parents, Iris herself, and her clones at various times yearn for homes that have been radically changed, usually for the worse. They remember what the homes were like before they were radically altered and lost.
We were happy before, weren't we? We had our functions, our simple pleasures. We had each other. And now look at us.
Despite homesickness for a lost home, Iris and her clones understand the need for hope in moving forward in a new land, which is connected to our last point for today's video. Our last point for today's video on themes of migration in 1000 Times Resist has to do with seeking hope in a new land. This theme of hope in another land is developed repeatedly through many generations. Iris's parents immigrated to Canada in hopes of a better life for Iris.
More for your life.
Iris and the 50 left on the generation ships in hopes of a solution to the epidemic and a restart for the world. Watcher, Fixer, and the rest of their sisters hope for their turn in the other side when they can join the All-Mother. The miscellaneous hope that someday they can go upstairs.
You, with your upstairs aspirations. How long will it take for you to understand they don't want you up there?
We have to go to the surface. There's nothing left for us down here. We'll die out.
At the end of the game, Blue has to choose whether to continue to hope in a better future. This idea of hope is also represented in the symbol of the surface and immunity, the possibility of living without a mask. In the Bible, this idea of hope in a better land, a spiritual heavenly land, is captured in the book of Hebrews. These all died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. Hebrews chapter 11 verses 13 to 16. Just like the heroes of faith had hope for a future heavenly country, many of the characters of 1000 Times Resist do have hope for a better life in a new land, perhaps the afterlife. 1000 Times Resist is a truly empathetic and interesting narrative game, trying to understand and feel compassion for each and every one of its broken characters. While the gameplay was mediocre at best, the narrative does convey universal themes in a unique, if somewhat jumbled way. In the first video, part 1, we reviewed themes related to rebellion and resistance of authority throughout the game's different generations. In this video, part 2, we analyzed different themes of emigration, like the morality of it, difficulties in the foreign land, homesickness, and of course, hope. If you made it this far, especially if you watched both videos, I am extremely grateful. These were challenging videos to make due to the ambiguity of some sections and the non-linear sequencing, but I still hope that you enjoyed them. That's all I have for you in this video. Bless you guys.
Lights out.
Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If this video blessed you in some way, please consider watching some of my other videos, subscribing, or sharing with me some of your thoughts in the comments below.